Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Brady on a wonderful Sunday afternoon where we spent a nice, a good amount of this afternoon watching an abysmal Jets team lose 4-0 to the New York Islanders. I am joined here today by my good friend Nick of Top Line Media. He's been here before, and yesterday I was having I was just hanging out during the day, enjoying my day, and I was thinking that after Friday's effort against the Colorado Avalanche, we might need to write a eulogy, and who better to bring in than Nick? Welcome to the show, buddy. Before I ask you too much about the game, I do have to cover a couple of things really quickly. Want to bet? Then get in on the action at Sports Interaction. The boys of summer are back on the diamond, and March Madness is on deck. Bet pregame, live and player on one of our many prop bets. Sports Interaction Sports Interaction makes it easy to deposit, play, and cash out. Head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. That's sportsinteraction.com/SDPN. Or in Ontario, download the app now using the QR code at the bottom of the screen. 19 plus. Of course, please play responsibly. All right, guys, we got to have a chat here. Today's game was as self-proclaimed a character game for the Winnipeg Jets after the abysmal game against Colorado in what Rick Bowness dubbed the most important game of the season. The Jets laid an egg, lost 5-1, awful first period, and didn't get better after that. And then the decision was made for Saturday to just take the day off. No hard practice, nothing. Nick, I'm going to start you off here right there. First of all, what did you think of the decision to, just let the team have a day off, as well as how do you think that may have affected the start of this game here today?
What do you mean by one day off? It's been like 3 days off in a row here. Holy shit. Considering how often too they complain about not having practice time and then in the middle of the big slump, take the Saturday off. You need it. Clearly it benefited them today with that one shot from the red line, 25 minutes in effort. Oh. Hey, I enjoy long weekends like the best of them, but this has just gone pretty fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, this is it's getting to a point where we do kind of need to hit the panic button. And I feel like last game, the fan base already hit the panic button. Everyone was screaming for Chevy to, wake up and get on the phones. Obviously, we do get the Nino Niederreiter trade, which, gave the fan base a little bit of revitalization yesterday. I know for myself, I was, going absolutely manic all day, going crazy, super excited just to see a sign of life from the GM of the Jets here. And obviously he couldn't get into the game today. He'll likely be in the game on Tuesday. We'll talk about the trade a little bit first. I think we first need to dig in just on the game. But boy, oh boy, like what a brutal start to this game. Only one shot in the first period. What was it? 12 shots against. And the one shot was one that came from outside the zone. Just brutal. I understand the thought process to being like, you know what? We just need to give the guys some time to breathe and maybe, key in themselves and understand that, something's got to give here. Something's got to change. But at the same time, it's like, has Rick Bowness lost the room? Like what's going on here? How did we get to this point? After, I still hear other teams constantly saying that, or fans from other teams constantly saying the Jets are having a great season, this and that. And meanwhile, we're sitting here and, in February, the Jets are literally the worst team at scoring at 5v5. They've got 9 goals all month, which has been brutal. And then to come out and lay an egg like that to start the game in a game where, again, I think there's a lot of respect that's given to the players when you go, hey, this is on you guys. I'm going to give you guys a day off. Get yourself right. Get ready for the game on Sunday. And then this happens. Like, do we need guys being babysat? Like, what's the solution here?
It sure does feel like Rick Bowness kind of did come in and play the babysitter role early. And it seems like he's kind of out of answers. Do we see back-to-back years where this core makes a coach resign in the middle of the year. Like, where do you go from here at this point? And I think the biggest disappointment of all this is Friday was called the biggest game of the year. They didn't show up. Today was considered we need the answer today. And if this is the answer the team has, like, where do you go from here? Like, it was great to see Chevy respond and make that trade yesterday, especially. I don't know if you checked out our episode we released yesterday morning, but I was pretty down on where things were trending. And then he kind of gave us that little boost, that we'll get into the trade in a second. But then they come out, and that's the thing too. Like, the GM answered some of these players ask for help, and this was the reward effort the next day. Like, what do you take from it at this point?
Yeah, I have no idea where you can go from here as the GM. Do the players just think that if they play like garbage, then the GM is gonna gonna provide more players? Like I sat here jokingly being like, well, maybe they're thinking that Chevy's gonna go and make another trade after seeing this awful performance, but alas, here we are.
Yeah.
I think we're gonna get into obviously the trade that happened. We're going to talk. I think my biggest question, which we'll get to at the end of the show, I think it's the most important one, is does this team deserve to spend to add more? But we're not going to get there yet. I first want to still kind of stay on the game a little bit first. My main question here, actually, before I get to that one, Dave Riddick. Dave Riddick started this game here. He had a couple not great goals against. Ones that you would definitely expect Connor Hellebuyck to get, but of course he didn't make those saves. What was your thought process? How did you feel when you saw that Dave Riddick was going to be in the cage here tonight? Again, in such an important character game for the Jets. Where did you stand on that personally?
I was surprised by the Riddick start, especially we saw them kind of hit the panic button last week by running Hellebuyck out there for the back-to-back. And after Friday's game, you'd think this is kind of a spot that felt like a must win. We're going to send Connor Hellebuyck out there, in my opinion, the best guy in the world. And I was surprised to see Dave Riddick, as strong a year as he's had. We are at a very interesting point with what to do with this group. And Connor Hellebuyck has been the bad streak stopper where he's going to get in there and he could win you a game. Mind you, today it's impossible to say he would have when you don't score a single goal, which continues to be the real story. But it did feel pretty deflating seeing a couple of those goals on Dave Riddick, because I will say, as bad as an effort as that was, it was another night I didn't feel that the Jets were that bad defensively. It didn't feel like the Islanders were overly dangerous, and a couple soft goals really kind of turned that on its head even more than it already was going.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you pointed out the fact that you cannot win unless you score a goal. Because I think that's where I also land, but it is, I saw kind of both sides, take wise on Twitter today, people saying that, obviously you can't win if you don't score a goal, but at the same time, when your goalie's letting in some weak goals, it's not very easy to build off of that. And
No.
For how bad the game was, it seemed like the Jets actually started to get some stuff rolling about midway through, I would say. A couple nice plays by Nick Ehlers, couple, shots, just getting shots on the net, gave the team a bit of a spark to try and get going again. But what I'm starting to get frustrated with is, and this game, it felt so obvious to me, at least watching. It was obvious to Kevin Sawyer, but the Islanders just had to do one thing in order to stop the Jets, and that was crowd the front of the net. Like, I'm at the point now where I'm looking at this team, and we've looking at Rick Bowness and his system, and all that. It relies heavily on offense being created from the defense, and it seemed like today, once the Jets actually got some stuff going, in the offensive zone, it was still all being ran through the defense mostly. And, even when they were starting to get shots on, or at least, they were trying to get shots on, they actually had zone time. The Islanders were able to block pucks really, really easily. It just seemed like they were able to, get in those lanes. And it didn't seem like they had much of a difficult, it didn't seem difficult to stop the Jets. The only thing really that they could get going was shots from the point. Again, you just block that and get it out of the zone, and you keep playing, a very, relaxed game of just, staying back. And so at this point in the season, we've seen such a lack of offense from the Jets. Are the Jets cooked? Like, is the playbook out on them? Like, it seems like the only way they can create offense is by getting a shot from the point. The puck goes into the corner. They pass it back to the point. Point guy shoots again. It gets blocked. Oh, it gets out of the zone. Okay, they break it in. They get it in low. What do? It goes back to the point. And obviously we know point shots are the the lowest expected goals, locations for shots. Is like my question is have the Jets been completely figured out? Or was it just a bad matchup tonight? Because obviously the Islanders like to play their defensive system really well, but
I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, no, just finishing off the question. Like, was it just a bad matchup, or do you think that this is just a pre-scout that is pretty obvious at this point?
I think there's a piece missing there too in the fact that another thing holding back their offense is just how poorly, especially tonight, I thought was evident was how poorly they lost that transition game, especially through the neutral zones. And if you're not gonna be able to transition the puck, which has been probably the biggest problem from the back end, you're gonna have trouble creating even more offense. And at a time when offense is already hard to come from, having to kind of stop up and go play D again is just kind of throwing an anchor into all of it. But yeah, you're right. A lot of it does come from the D. We know that's the hardest place on the ice to generate offense from. I don't know if we've seen the last good stretch out of the Jets offensively. The one thing right now, like obviously the top six is on a bit of a cold spell, and we knew kind of coming in the bottom six was going to give you next to nothing, and that's going to happen. But we have seen this top six kind of, go on hot streaks, and I imagine with 20 something games left, there's still one of those in them. Obviously, Nino Niederreiter is going to be a big boost to the offense, especially kind of getting the net, like you say. They've had trouble there. He's a big, strong guy. Gets to the hard areas, likes to shoot the puck too, which outside of like Nick Ehlers taking 5, 6, 7 shots a game, the Jets could really use a volume shooter right now. So I do think you'll see the offense start to come back, but is it going to be enough? Like, Niederreiter is not fixing what we just saw the last 6 weeks. He's going to be a nice boost compared to the bar is honestly the floor for upgrading the Jets forward group. And he is a very nice piece. That was a great trade from Kevin Shoveldayoff. But if this team's going to be serious, they need a lot more than Nino Niederreiter at this point.
Absolutely. I wholeheartely agree. And I guess that kind of feeds into the Nino talk. Obviously the Jets make the deal for only a 2024 second rounder, which, I got to give, hats off to Chevy. That's a great ad for next to nothing. It feels like, especially considering this season, like that 2024 pick would help you in 2029. Like,
yeah,
it would be a long time before that's a useful piece. And at that point, Chevy's not going to be a part of this organization, or will he?
Oh, he will be. Hey, I don't know if you saw the news out of Nashville, but Dave Foley just retired after 26 years. Mark Chipman did say he was following the Nashville plan, so that gives us 14 more years of Kevin Shoveldayoff. I'm just saying, I wouldn't write it off.
Oh,
I wouldn't write it off.
Well, let us know in chat here what you guys think. We got a decent amount of people watching tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Give the stream a like. We would really appreciate it. And let us know what you think about this game and where the Jets are in the season right now. Again, going back to the game a little bit and also to kind of talk a little bit about the Nino stuff. The first period, again, abysmal, and then we saw a little bit of life come back to the Jets in the second period, and what I think was a big piece of that was Rick Bowness ended up switching up the lines. The start of the game had some lines that we've been seeing a lot recently, and they haven't been working. You had, like Connor and Scheifele together with Appleton. You had Nick Ehlers, Dubois, and Wheeler, and then Manline and Lowry, actually on Sfialbi, and then, it doesn't matter. Anyways, not the point. In the second period, he ended up switching it up, going back to the Sam Gagner with with Pierre-Luc Dubois and Cal Connor, and then going with Nick Ehlers, Mark Scheifele, and Blake Wheeler in the top 6 there. So my question to you, after seeing, how that first period went with with that lineup, and then the switch to the second period and a much more a lineup that we're a little more used to seeing. When Nino comes in here, what is your expectation as far as line wise? And if your expectation is different than what you want, where would you see him best fitting in on the team?
I guess the easy thought would be that he would replace Sam Gagner in the current configuration and kind of join that PLD and Kyle Connor group. But I think I really like the fit better with a Mark Scheifele and Nick Ehlers. Just as far as, you're going to want Nino kind of getting to that net front, and, PLD does a pretty good job of that when he's going on that other group. So that's kind of what I'd be looking at, and maybe having Wheeler bounce up to the right side of Connor and PLD. But I just think looking at where it went today, the first guess would probably be Nino in that Sam Gagner spot. Well, I don't know. Where are you thinking there?
For me, I definitely agree. I think that he makes a lot of sense playing with Scheifele. I would say center wise makes the most sense in my opinion because going with is exactly what you said. PLD is the guy on that line who's willing to be a little bit dirtier, grindier, getting in the corner, get the pucks. I don't think that they need a second guy like that. And I think that Mark Scheifele kind of needs a player who's going to work with him. One of the things that I've been very frustrated with the Jets is that it feels like they have too many what I will call waiters. People who wait, or players who wait for other players to do the work and get the puck and get, they just have to sit there and wait with their stick ready in a one-timer position for the puck to come over them, and then all they got to do is just shoot the puck. Finishers, maybe you'll call them. I consider them waiters because they don't work for it. And when things aren't, when the momentum isn't in the Jets' favor, Mark Scheifele becomes one of the biggest waiters out there. And so I find that, if you put guys on his line who kind of push the play, guys like a Nick Ehlers, guys like Nino Niederreiter, I think that would really work well with him. But at the same time, I do agree with you. I do end up seeing him on, with the Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois line, which, by the way, thank God they split up Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele. Those two guys, if things aren't going their way, it's my bad. God, they're tough to watch in the D zone.
Both of them I didn't like Kyle Connor tonight at all, to be completely honest.
Me too.
Between that effort on that, was it the second or third goal? And then there's a couple just basic passes to the middle of the ice that were picked off. I don't even know what to do with the lines right now because you're not getting anything from anybody right now.
Yeah.
Looking at it,
I completely agree. It feels like the Jets, it feels like there's nothing working. Nothing is working for the Jets right now at all. And no matter how you change things, I think the biggest reason, the biggest reason why that first period went the way it did is it felt like there was absolutely no chemistry on the ice. It just felt like every single time players were getting the puck, it was just turnover, sloppy pass. And, as much as I love Nick Ehlers, tonight I think he had a couple pretty tough giveaways. There's the one to Scheifele where he did the drop pass to an Islanders player. And just even, I don't know. I only bring him up just to show that, I'm not just picking on the players I am always going to pick on. I think that I think the Jets all around had a pretty poor game. And they really need to figure it out.
Pretty poor week. Never mind game.
Month. Jeez. The Jets
6 weeks now.
The Jets haven't played a good game since January 13th when they played the Penguins. And I remember sitting here doing Game Over with Kishore that night, and we were just sitting here gleaming, just smiling ear to ear. Thinking that this Jets team was, going to go far. They're going to add big at the deadline. And now here we are, of course, Nino Niederreiter is a great add, but looking at this Jets team, they need more. And, we'll see what Nino can really do to change this Jets team. Obviously, I don't think that he is the savior of any sorts. But then this gets into my big question for the day, which is, Does this team deserve to spend genuinely good assets at this deadline to try and get a player? I had this question written down earlier when Timo Meier was still available, but of course now he is going to be going to the New Jersey Devils. There's guys like Ivan Barbashev who's going to the Golden Knights. Ryan O'Reilly's already gone to the Leafs. So the market's thinning out. And if the Jets really want to be a big player in this, deadline, if there's if there's teams that still want to be buyers, that prices might be decently high now that there's a lot less available on the market. And so my question to you, Nick, is if you're in Kevin Cheveldayoff's shoes right now, what are you doing? Do you think that this team deserves to, get a bit of a boat or a lifeline given out to them, which kind of feels like what the Nino Niederreiter trade was? Do you think that they deserve to go out and spend genuinely good assets, guys like, Brad Lambert, guys like Rutger McGroarty, their first round pick in this upcoming draft? There's many prospects, Ville Heinola, of course, lots of stuff that the Jets could be spending this deadline. Do you think that they should? Do you think they will? And what do you see from the Jets in this next upcoming week?
I think the first question is, if they don't go all in and buy, does Kevin Cheveldayoff deserve to keep a job coming out of this year? We're officially in the first wildcard spot. If Seattle wins today, we're going to be a wildcard 2 going into this deadline. And we all know the stakes on this year. And with the wheels coming off, like, there has to be pressure for him to add. I know he's in year 1 of a fresh 3-year extension. At some point, this organization's got to show some sort of pressure internally for actual results, especially after last year. So I fully expect them to buy, especially with the Nino Niederreiter ad yesterday, a week out. Only cost them a second, so they kept all those assets you just mentioned. And I think the idea of getting that piece of business done early does make it easier to significantly upgrade a roster within the week. But the one thing we kind of keep hearing is they want term, because it looks like they kind of want to extend the window another 2 or 3 years. And I don't know right now if this team's worth doing that for, because it's now been nearly 20 games, which is a third of the season, that they've looked like the team we've seen for 4 years now. It's pretty easy for me to hang my hat on the idea that the first half of the year was, a new coach bump, and they're showing us who they really are all over again. And that is a group that is just a bunch of losers at this point. Like, this is your response on home ice back to back when all these questions are being asked of you. This was the response. Like, I can't put it any other way. We all just watched it twice. And I said yesterday on the podcast we released, at this point, I'd respect Kevin Cheveldayoff if he got ahead of the Pierre-Luc Dubois situation where we're going to get backed into the Jacob Trouba wall, and just traded PLD this week to any contender. Timo Meier's off the market. All of a sudden, that's the most attractive trade chip. I'm looking forward to seeing what Meier got to kind of compare. But a first-line center like him at this time of year, like, the Jets aren't going to win a single round right now the way this is going, no matter how hard Kevin Cheveldayoff swings. So, like, I don't know. That's kind of what I would be feeling the market out at least at this point.
But do you think that it's worth because here's the thing: if Chevy moves PLD in the next week, like,
it's not happening.
It won't happen. I would be so shocked if it happened. But if that were to happen, like, that essentially closes the window. Like, that closes it unless they're getting a comparable player back. I mean, I think the window is as open as Connor Hellebuck is on your team.
Here's my question. What is this window for? Is it to win a single playoff round, or is it to win a cup? Because if it's a cup, the window's already closed. Let's be honest. This team isn't doing it.
This
group is not doing it.
They're not doing. I here's the thing. I 100% agree with you, because at this point, like, I know it's really dumb. It's really, as guys who like to, pride ourselves on looking further than the intangibles, but these guys are a group of losers. I'm sorry. Like, we're at the point where, oh yeah, Mark Scheifele's going to go out and be like a Conn Smythe candidate. No, goddamn way. The only way that
how about his body language in the third period today?
my God.
If you think the fan base is just the group feeling it, go watch Mark Scheifele in that third period.
He's a baby. It's really tough having him on our team, and it's so tough that we're sitting, because like I remember having conversations with you earlier this season where we were talking about Mark Scheifele going like, like this is his like renaissance year. This is his like he had such a good start to the season, kind of proving everyone wrong, talking about him and his language this off season, and the way he was just kind of whiny. That we look at the past off seasons, the way he reacted to the Jake Evans suspension, everything. Like, he's had such a resurgent year at the start, and look at where we're at now. Like, this is brutal. There is no chance right now of the Winnipeg Jets winning the cup without some sort of seismic change, and I don't see it happening personally. Anyway, to wrap,
I don't even know where you go with it.
Neither do I, man. And here's the thing, that Chevy has kind of locked himself into, like, Chevy's made his bed. Like, if the Jets don't go for it this year, then what was this entire past 2 years for? What was the point of trading for Brendan Dillon and Nate Schmidt? What was the point of keeping those guys on the roster this offseason instead of giving, more spots to Ville Heinola? And, if you're big on, if you think that if you see potential in Logan Stanley, why weren't they giving him more options? Why have they not played Dylan Sandberg more? Like, the Jets could have decided to go in one or two directions. And you know what? I will give Chevy some credit here, because, we're at the point where the reason why we're so frustrated right now is because the Jets gave us reason to believe, and I give Chevy credit for not, selling Brendan Dillon this offseason, for not trading away Nate Schmidt, whoever you want to say on the roster, and saying, you know what, I want to give these guys another shot, because we saw that this team could actually do something, at least earlier on this year. But he's kind of locked himself into this cage.
Man. I don't know if I agree with that, actually.
I mean, right now, I think obviously, what's the word? Hindsight's 20/20, and recency bias is always important. But at the start of the year, the Jets were rolling. That is unfortunately a fact.
I know, but as a GM, you got to see that this is an 82 game schedule, and even the staunchest supporters should have seen that the bottom six was not going to produce like that all year. That's a big reason. Like, someone like myself was arguing that in late November, in December, just bite the bullet and make a trade, because as soon as one injury came up, you're up to Mason Appleton in your top six. I don't know. I feel like it shouldn't have gotten to this level low, but we should have expected some sort of regression. That I can't give a GM credit, because he got 30-something games out of a roster that we've seen do this collapse in 2018, 2019, that we've seen collapse at bits and pieces during the Canadian division. We saw them completely collapse last year. I just can't get behind that idea that we should give him credit for
that's fair. I'm more or less just talking about the off season, and the fact that he decided that, there are good pieces here. When you have one of the best goalies in the world, you got to try and go for it.
But then he didn't even bet on those pieces. He brought nobody in for them other than Sam Gagner.
I agree. I completely agree. And I think that it was a cautious feel out of the season. Will we need to add? And I think that he realized that, we will need to add, but was hoping to go, big fish hunting this trade deadline. Obviously that didn't happen. Timo Meier's now in New Jersey. But I'm more just saying, I think it is worth giving credit to him, to at least to have not been to just sell everything over the offseason. But I do agree with you. I completely agree with you that there should have been a trade much earlier in the season. He should have realized, okay, we do have something here. Something, the season started off well, but I agree, that he should have realized that, the bottom six was playing above their heads. But also at the same time, how can you foresee Adam Lowry going 33 games without a goal? How can you foresee all that? And don't get me wrong, I want to be clear. I completely agree with you. He should have made a move earlier. And now we're at the point where he has locked himself into this cage of you kind of have to go for it. But at the same time, like, what is he going to? Like, do you picture him adding?
I will say this: Adam Lowry was pacing 50-something points, and he's never hit 30 in his life. So I feel like we should have seen a pretty drastic step back from him. But that
Fair enough.
33 games is pretty crazy, especially for someone that got power play time for most of that. But that's a whole other story. I don't think he's actually stuck in this cage because I think the Nino Niederreiter trade was cheap enough and long enough out where if they lost even like the next couple of games and he wanted to sell, I think he could reasonably do it because of that extra year on Nino Niederreiter. Like I thought he was going to cost a second and like a B prospect when I saw the trade.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like you're enough ahead and didn't give up enough that I don't think you're pot committed yet if you really wanted to tap the brakes. But I fully expect that you got to hope and expect if you're a fan of this team that's watched through this process that they are going to finally go in and try to compete because it's been 4 years now of this group that they've bet on and we've been told is so much better than they've shown to be. Like even the group itself has carried themselves like they've done something for so long. Man, there's people watching this team that don't even remember the Western Conference Final. It was so long ago. It might be time just to hit that that button, man.
I think I don't know if it is just now because I think that you can hit that blow it up button in the off season if things don't work out. And at this point now, I feel like you got to do something. You have to try. Like at this point, you have to do something. You have to add more. It's gonna suck. It's gonna suck. It's gonna cost you some good picks, some good prospects. But at this point,
I could get behind it if it's a big move. Like let's see it. But
I do too. And we're getting a little bit low on time here. Unfortunately, I did not upgrade to Zoom Pro to let us go long tonight. But
probably a good thing
for sure. So we don't just go over and over saying that the Jets suck. But at this point right now, I look to you and I ask, if there is more, to add, who are you looking at? Like, what is the trade that moves the needle now that Timo Meier is off the market? Like, who do you look to be the guy who we should be targeting at this point? Is there anyone in particular that stands out to you?
Yeah, I do like the Nick Schmaltz route. He was a guy like we kind of did a trade deadline preview a few weeks back, and he was someone I was wondering if Arizona would want to move off of due to his money. And I do think a top 6 forward would go a long way to pushing even more of that depth out. Like Nino Niederreiter and a Nick Schmaltz compared to some of these bottom of the roster guys is a pretty significant upgrade in season. There's talks that a Ghost might be added to a deal like that. Maybe you look at, I think you just need to get as many forwards in here as possible. So maybe you're looking at trying to get a rental like Nick Ritchie or Nick Bukestad on top of a Nick Schmaltz. I just would like to bring in as many forwards at this point. Defensively, outside of the struggles of Neil Pionk, they've been a pretty strong defensive team. They do have Connor Hellebuck. They just need to find ways to score way more goals. Like we're looking at a stretch here where they're scoring under 2 goals a game for 6 or 7 games here. Just bring as many forwards in as possible.
They have 9 goals this month. They have 9 5v5 goals this month. Like it's abysmal. One
of my buddies texted me asking if we could bring in 5 new forwards in the next week. Like that's where people are at here, and they're not wrong. Like we have so many AHL guys basically at the bottom of this lineup. Go find a deal somewhere that brings you 2 or 3 guys. Like I don't know. That's the only kind of pathway I can see here.
I completely agree, and I think Nick Schmaltz is a good one to look at. I would also look at maybe Adam Henrique would be maybe a decent third line guy to add. But at this point, I 100% agree with you regarding the forwards. There's no reason to add anyone on D unless they're like an actual move the needle guy like a Jacob Chikrin. I want no part of John Klingberg. He's Pionk to the extreme, I would say. But
I might try him there.
who knows? I mean, and at bad results on a bad team defensively. I mean, it's not. I don't blame him,
Yeah.
But yeah, and so with we got 2 minutes left here before Zoom kicks you off. My one question to you is, the Jets had there was an article that came out that the Jets did have interest in Timo Meier, but ended up not going through with it due to the fact that he was he wouldn't have signed an extension with the Jets. If that was the case, would you still have gone through with it just for a playoff rental? And obviously you have his rights after. Do you think that that's something that would, with all the things that are around Winnipeg, with how difficult it is to sign people and this and that, do you think you would have done that yourself?
I was on board with the whole time. If this was a go all in year and you're resetting everything this summer, he fits right into that anyways. It's going to really depend on what the price look like. I would get not including a Cole Perfetti in a deal where he wasn't going to sign. That was kind of my line as well. So I would get that, but I was a believer that you could trade assets now and still recoup most of that back if you're looking at a 1-year run here.
For sure. Alrighty, this has been a great show. Nick, I'm likely going to lose you, so thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
Thanks for, obviously go check out Nick on Top Line Media. They've got tons of stuff around the Jets and many other teams. Make sure to check them out. And thank you all for tuning in on the stream here. We had a good little showing here. Again, please like the stream. Really appreciate it. Share it with your friends. Follow at SDPN Sports on Twitter. Follow at NHL Chunky. Follow at Nick Lynham and Top Line Media, of course, too. Check out mine and Liz's podcast at Canty Size. We'll be having a post trade deadline one coming out here, and obviously there will be tons of trade deadline coverage over on Top Line Media. So please go and check that out. Nick, I just lost you as I was about to say thank you again. But like I said, guys, this was a really fun show. It was a pretty rough game for the Jets. But thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you guys on Tuesday and see what the Nino Niederreiter start to the Winnipeg Jets era is going to be like. But anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Have yourselves a wonderful Sunday. And hopefully you guys all have a great week. Once again, thank you all for tuning in.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada's